Welcome to Conversations Live. For more than a decade, we've brought you the best in books, entertainment, and current events. When the movers and shakers of the world have something to say to you, they say it to us first. And now, celebrating 15 years of broadcasting, here's your host, Cyrus Webb.
And welcome back, everyone, to Conversations Live. I'm your host, Cyrus Webb. Glad you all could join us once again. Whether you're tuning in on the radio dial here in Mississippi at WYAD 94.1 FM, we welcome you all back to our show. Also, those tuning in through our online affiliates around the world, including our iHeartRadio family. We're glad to have all of you with us as well. We're excited to welcome Dr. Lawrence Wood to our program today. He's an author and motivational speaker of two books that I had a chance to read. One is called Among Pigeons, and the second is called Love and Death Among Pigeons. We're going to talk to him not only about his love of storytelling, but how the main character of both books, Roman Barnes, came to him, and also the topic of homelessness that he's devoted a lot of his time and energy to, what it was like for him to kind of wove that into the story that I think all of us can appreciate. If you're just now hearing about the two books, we'll let you know at the end of our segment how you can be able to add both of them to your reading list. But Dr. Wood, hello to you and welcome to the program.
Nice to be with you, Cyrus.
Hey, the pleasure is definitely all mine. I know we have a special guest that's there with you that's going to be joining us a little bit later. But before we add them into the conversation, Dr. Wood, I want to talk to you about this experience. I mean, in reading these two books, Among Pigeons and Love and Death Among Pigeons, one of the things that comes across is that we never know, of course, what a person has gone through in their lives that has gotten to them where they are today. For you, you've had a very interesting journey for yourself. What has it been like for you to reflect on the events in your life that helped you get to where you are today?
Well, when it comes to the books, it's very evident, I think, of what the journey has been for me. But how it all started, when I was a little kid living in New York, there was a gentleman that we called John the Bum. We have no idea what his name really was. But we called him that, and we didn't like him. We despised him. We treated him badly. And he came through every spring, disappeared by fall or winter. And we never really didn't think much about him until he showed up. And then one spring he never showed up, and we asked ourselves, well, where is he? But you know, that thought lasted about a minute and a half at the most, and then we went on about being our usual kid self. But then I grew up, and every once in a while I tell the story that I just told you, and I started thinking, well, who was that guy anyway? Who was he? And by that time, you know, Vanessa and I are living out here in California, and he's back in New York, and I'm sure had passed by that. By the time I seriously started thinking about him. Okay. And so I decided to, fill in the gaps of what I didn't know about him. And that's how the book came about. And then the second, and now they're working on the third.
Mm-hmm. And the title of it, Among Pigeons, and you know, when I first heard about the book, Dr. Wood, I thought about the scripture, of course, where Jesus talked about us being worth more to our Father than sparrows. One of the interesting things about Among Pigeons that even a Roman talked about was, you know, if God did care about us more, of course, than He cared about the birds, why was He there having to kind of fight among the pigeons? You know, the whole idea of struggle, I think, is an interesting one in the book because we meet people who are going through various struggles, not just Roman, but also even the law enforcement that we were able to meet in the book, and even someone who's dealing with a loss, of a child, and not knowing how that situation is going to turn out, and we kind of see that unfold. Was that a theme that you knew you wanted to address, that of lost and found, for the reader?
Well, no, I can't say that I did purposely do that, but the famous writer and screenwriter Ray Bradbury, he once said that find out what your hero wants and then follow them. So that's really what where all that comes from. You know, you have a blueprint that when you write a book, you have this plan. But then you know these characters that you create, they really become real, and right. You just follow. You let them go where they want to go and say what they want to say. Once you really create a character.
Yeah. That brings up an interesting point, Dr. Wood, because for the majority of Among Pigeons, and we're able to see it again in Love and Death Among Pigeons, we kind of take this journey through the eyes of Roman. We're able to experience the things that he experienced. What was it like for you to slip into his skin and to become this individual?
Yes, and some people have asked me, have I ever been homeless? And I never answered the question. I always tease people with that. But I've in the beginning, especially with the first book, once I knew I wanted to write about homelessness, I would ask people and homeless people what their experience was. I'd watch them, observe them. And I tried to imagine a little bit what it would be like if I was homeless.
Right.
And you know what? In doing that, you know what I found out, Cyrus? You can't make anything up. What you think you're making up, it really happens.
For sure. And I think that's it. And knowing that it is the life of so many too, Dr. Wood, I think that's another thing for the audience to think about. And we're going to talk about that more as we get into the issue of homelessness. I want to say for those who are just tuning in, either on the radio side or online, you're listening to Conversations Live. We're excited to welcome Dr. Lawrence Wood to our program today. He's the author of the books Among Pigeons and also Love and Death Among Pigeons. We're going to let you guys know at the end of the segment how you can be able to get both books for yourself and stay connected. He is writing book 3, going to be releasing that. So I want to talk about the question that's on the second book, Dr. Wood, on the cover. What is your biggest fear? For yourself, what was that question like for you to answer? What was it like for you to think about for yourself? What is your biggest fear in life?
Well, each book has a theme. The first one was about dignity. The second one is about companionship, and I think that's the major driving force in humans. Nobody wants to be alone. Mm-hmm. Nobody. And when you ask yourself of that, and as I was writing the book, as you know, Roman finally finds a companion. We won't tell the end of that story, but it's that drive to have somebody with you through life. That is a powerful drive.
Right. And for yourself then, is that one of the things that you thought about when you asked yourself that question?
Oh, yeah, definitely. Vanessa, who's sitting right next to me, certainly my life became better, and I can't imagine life without her, that's for sure.
I think that's a great segue to being able to bring in Mrs. Wood to the conversation. Mrs. Wood, thank you so much for being with us today as we're talking to Dr. Wood about the two books. There's an interesting conversation that happens between Roman and the pastor that we're able to meet in the book, Love and Death Among Pigeons, and they're talking about the issue of love and God. So Mrs. Wood, I want to ask you, what was it like for you, because I know you've read them, what was it like for you to kind of see how Dr. Wood had this conversation about the connection between love and God? I actually want to read a bit of what was said to Roman and also to the pastor, because I think for a lot of people, this is something that people may not always think about when it comes to love. This is what was said to the pastor by Roman. For those who have the print edition of the book, it's on page 156. I'm just talking, Pastor. You're like talking with a celebrity. Who's talking to a celebrity and gets to really know them? All we know about them is what the magazines tell us, but if I were able to talk to one, really talk to one, I could find out who they really are. You know what I mean? And the thing that goes on that the pastor says is about, of course, God being a God of love, and how people who are looking for love are really looking for God. What was that like for you, Mrs. Wood, to kind of think about that conversation between those two in relation to what your husband just said about the two of you?
Wow, that's a good question. God is the center of our life, my life and Larry's. And so it just makes sense that everything stems from love. And to have that statement in the book was an example of what we feel is important in our lives, is to have God at the center. So it just makes so much sense to me that that conversation is all about, looking up and knowing that God is there watching, protecting you, and taking care of you. And so when you're talking about Roman's plight and what's going on with him and his homelessness, that for him to know that God is present, I think is so important for the readers to understand that that's the center for Roman.
Yeah, hey, he's kind of a resistant guy toward that thought, but really, in the beginning of that book, to set the theme up, the verse that it's God said it's not good for man to be alone.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So that sets up the whole thing, and the idea of companionship. So people may not know it, and I don't think most people do, but that is what they're seeking. They're seeking companionship, and the ultimate companionship, obviously, is with the one who created them, God.
Yeah. Yeah. I could not help when I was reading the second book. I didn't think about it as much with the first book, Among Pigeons, Dr. Webb, but when I was reading in the second book, Love and Death Among Pigeons, I couldn't help but think about that old saying, looking for love in all the wrong places, because there's so many people that are looking are looking for a substitute to something that only God can fill in our lives. And we're looking to fill that with money, with so many other different vices that are out there, instead of really what's going to help to complete us. Now, this might be an interesting thing, though, for us to consider when you're dealing with the fact that Roman is someone who has every reason to be resentful toward God, not think about God as a God of love, considering what he's had to go through from Among Pigeons now to this book. So, Dr. Wood, we have to talk about that. I mean, why makes a guy who we are able to see, and we won't spoil it for those who haven't read it yet, but who we're able to see in Among Pigeons, is able to go above and beyond for others, not thinking so much about himself. Why make a guy like that homeless?
Well, the third book will tell you about his journey into homelessness, because the first two books don't get that specific. But just to go back to why I wrote about homelessness in the first place, it's because of my encounter with John the Bum when I was a kid. So homelessness is that part of the story that, number one, connects me to John the Bum. Number two, it takes a person to a place where a lot of people need to be, not necessarily homeless, but have to be so low that they have to look toward God.
Yeah. Got you.
I think that makes sense.
Yeah.
I don't.
No, it does. It definitely does. And I think too, as I mentioned earlier, there are other individuals that we're able to meet in the book Among Pigeons, and one of them, of course, is Sarah. I will definitely not talk a lot about Sarah because I think that's an interesting part of the story, and we'll let our audience know that when they read it. But I want to say that the reason I bring Sarah up is because of what Sarah's mother says about her. And I thought this was an interesting thing for me to actually read because, I think we all know what it's like to hope that nothing bad happens to us and to want to see the good in people like children sometimes do. But one of the things that Sarah's mother says about her is this, as she's kind of describing her. Sarah is a very trusting and good-hearted person. She's always sees the good in people. Even when we saw the play The Color Purple, she felt sorry for Cece's husband. She thought he turned out to be good in the end. And then it goes on to talk about, of course, what has happened around the situation with Sarah. Talk to us about the searching for good, because that's one of the things that Roman also finds himself wanting to do, even when he is dealt a bad hand. Dr. Wood, what was it like for you to have that search for good throughout these two books?
Yeah, the search for good is really the search for significance. And he's lost his family, he's lost his home, he's lost money, he's lost his job, and he's looking for an opportunity to feel significant. So that's why you find, even when you find Roman trying to do something to make himself feel good about himself, And that probably, and well, I shouldn't say probably because I created him, so it's not probably, but he's really thinking of the family he lost.
Yeah. That's a good point. And I think, too, I'm glad you mentioned that about significance, because it also shows that sometimes the greatest things, the greatest gifts, can come from those who we least expected. We definitely see that in Among Pigeons. It unfolds in a different type of way in the second book, Love and Death Among Pigeons. Did you go into this, Dr. Wood, knowing that there was going to be a continuation of Roman's journey, or did it just feel as though one book wasn't enough to tell the story you wanted to tell?
Well, no, I had no idea that it was going to become the series that it was going to become. I did it to get out my thoughts and what I thought was a good story. Then after that, I just talking with Vanessa, and I just realized there was more story to tell. So then I wrote the second one. And then our son Seth, he comes up with another. He says, "Dad, you know what you could write about next in the next book?" And I'm thinking in my head, I'm thinking to myself, "Oh, jeez, I'm done with Roman. I'm done." And he says, "You should write about him before he became homeless." And I'm thinking, that is a good idea, but I'm done with this guy. So. And I'm certainly not done with him. I'm more involved with Roman than I've ever been. We've even filmed a trailer for the movie. We just finished that in Atlanta last week, right? And so me and Roman are getting more and more and more and more involved.
Yeah.
And for us, Roman is a symbol for us. I mean, he's taken us through a journey on our own, recognizing homelessness. Everyone sees it everywhere, and we were very concerned about homeless veterans because we're both veterans. And, we had our transitional house for homeless veterans that we ran for 5 years. So Roman has been a very intricate part of our lives, and a lot of the people that we talk to in the reviews about homelessness and reading these series of books have said to us that it's really opened their eyes, and they want to do more about the homelessness plight. So, Roman is here to stay in our lives. He's not going anywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's our child.
Yeah.
Who will never grow up.
Right. Well, that gives us something to look forward to. I want to even another thing I wanted to mention before we kind of segue into the audience, which you mentioned, Mrs. Wood, is that in Love and Death Among Pigeons, we also see that, and again, we'll talk around this so we don't spoil it, but we're able to get some reflection of Roman's previous life by little things that he sees. One of them, and you'll remember the scene, of course, Dr. Wood, where he sees the pregnant woman alone, and he reflects on his own wife and the situation that she went through, and wondering what would happen if she had a repeat, we'll say it that way, of what happened before. But then realizing that maybe he was misreading that situation, that maybe everything was okay. Maybe she was there because of someone else. Maybe it wasn't because of her. And I thought about us, where sometimes we see something and we're so quick to make an assumption about things. Do you think
Absolutely.
That's also one of the lessons we can learn from Roman, is not to be so quick, just as he wouldn't want assumptions made about him, not to make assumptions about others?
Right. That is one of the major themes of the book, is stop making judgments about people that you know nothing about. For instance, every once in a while I'll post on my Facebook page, someone will they'll be involved in a natural disaster, whether it be a flood, hurricane, fire, and I'll say homeless in an instant. And you don't know these people's stories. You have no idea. You walk past them, you walk around them, you maybe give them $1 and keep on going, but you don't know their story.
Right.
And also, I wanted to highlight the fact that a lot of people may find some uncomfortableness with homeless people, not because of the way they look or smell, but because they may realize, I'm just that close. I'm closer than what I want to feel like I am.
Yeah. So true. So true. I think that's a really good point. And I think, too, knowing that it may be the very people who we turn our noses up at that it might end up being the most help and benefit to us. I think that comes across among pigeons as well. I think in Love and Death Among Pigeons, we're able to see how we can work together, how we might actually be helping each other, saving one another. But in Among Pigeons, I definitely thought about that, here you have someone who would be the most unlikely hero of all. Kind of saving the day, as it were, and not wanting anything in return. I mean, now that in itself says a whole lot too. I mean, and again, we'll talk around this, Dr. Wood. You know what I'm talking about, but we won't spoil it for our audience. I mean, that is another big thing, because I think it says something to all of us about not always needing that pat on the back, or not always needing that validation. Is that a quality in Roman that you hope to better cultivate?
Oh, definitely. I don't know if I'm Roman or Roman is me, or whether I'm Roman is my hero or what I'm writing. But you do things because they're the right things to do. And you'll be rewarded, but you don't necessarily do them for looking for that reward. But you said something that was very significant, and I'm glad you brought it up, talking about an unlikely hero, because that's Roman for sure, and he was looking for, and as you said before, and we talked about before, he's looking for significance, he's looking for praise, he's looking for stuff, and then he begins to turn. He turns that thought around, and that's certainly something I need to turn around too. To stop looking for to be exalted or praised, and just do God's work. Just do God's work. And these books, the eventual movie and hopefully TV series, for us, we're doing God's work.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that is the other thing, as we kind of look at some of these other characters as well. Detective Ennis and Lois, I think, would be another example of that for sure. Again, where faith plays a role. I think, before I ask you, Dr. Wood, I want to ask Mrs. Wood this. What was it like for you to see these two characters unfold, Detective Ennis, Greg, and Lois, and their relationship?
Well, first of all, I knew this man. My husband is a very, very creative person. But to actually see the first book, Among Pigeons, come to life, I would sit here and listen to him pecking away as he's writing. And it was so cool that he didn't let me read anything until when it was finally done. He had to print it up, a special copy for me to read. And I was just blown away sitting here thinking, this in my house, this is going on right next to me. I'm hearing him pecking away, had no idea all of this was in his head. The stories with the detectives were like, where is all this coming from? I just could not imagine this creativity. Is this real? Did you experience this? And, I would ask questions, and no, it's just what I thought of. And I was just blown away by the relationship of the couples and, the financial. I won't go through a lot of details, but, I'm thinking, is this something that I don't know about, or is this something that you see our life to be? And so I had all these questions, and I just had to go with it and just say, you know what, it just came out of his head. But it was just so real to me. It was like it just popped off the pages, and I could just see some of those things in our marriage, and I know a lot of other people will experience those same things when they read it in their relationship. So it's really real.
Yeah. Yeah. So, Dr. Wood, I want to ask you this. One of the parts in Love and Death Among Pigeons, a great conversation that takes place between Lois and Detective Ennis, is where, again, I love the fact, too, I want to say before I get to the question. I think many times we think we have to go to a pastor or someone in a certain position in order to be able to find out something about we're having a relationship with God. One of the things that Lois says to Detective Ennis is that we have to remember that God is not there when we need something, when there's trouble. He's always there, and he wants to hear from us all the time. That's one of the great lessons. What was it like for you to give that to Lois, give that gift to Greg, Dr. Wood, from Lois, that God wants to hear from us in times of good and when we might need him?
Again, we don't always, like you said, we don't always have to go to people of expected authority that have the title. Because I've always said, the best therapist is a good friend. So while Detective Ennis is going through what he's going through, Lois turns out to be his best friend. And so the things that I struggle with as well. And maybe I shouldn't say that because then you'll know that I'm in that book too, But those are the things that I have learned that I want to get out to people, but I don't want to preach at them. I just want to just let it flow in a natural conversation between people, the flow between characters in the book.
Right, for sure.
I try not to be preachy. I try to be entertaining and then throw in something.
Yeah. Well, you definitely achieved that. I will say you definitely achieved that goal. And so as we kind of look forward towards what's going to happen next for Roman and these characters in the next book that you're writing, Dr. Wood, I want to talk about what you mentioned, and that is being able to see this story literally being brought to life as a film. I mean, was that something you could have imagined, or how did that come about?
Well, that's my first love is movies. And I never even thought about writing a book until, eventually, I had the impetus from Vanessa to do so and just get that story out. But I even wrote it in terms of I saw it on the screen. So I was really describing what I saw on a movie screen as I was writing it. And that's what I do all the time. So even though I wrote the book, I've always seen it as a movie, and then eventually I really see it as a TV series because it really lends itself to so many different stories that can play out in a TV series. There's no doubt about it in my mind.
Gotcha. Well, it gives us something to be able to look forward to for sure. Again, everyone, Dr. Lawrence Wood has been our guest. We've been joined by Mrs. Vanessa Wood as well. We've been talking with him not only about the journey of bringing to life the characters Roman Barnes, but also what it's been like for him to see the response to the books Among Pigeons and Life and Death Among Pigeons. Now, both books are available through lulu.com. That's LULU.com. The second book, Love and Death Among Pigeons, is available through our friends at Amazon.com as well. You all can get it there in print, as well as a Kindle edition is available there as well. As far as book 3, that is to be continued. So I'll throw it to you, Dr. Wood. How can our audience stay connected with you to keep up with what's coming up next for you?
Well, you can always go to my Facebook page, Lawrence A. Wood, MD. That's a good source to stay informed. Also, I have an Instagram page and a Twitter page. Twitter page is I Am Roman Barnes, at I Am Roman Barnes. So those 3 ways are certainly good ways to stay in touch with what's coming up.
Very interesting name there on Twitter. We won't go into that though, but so makes you want to stay connected with Dr. Wood. As he mentions, you can find him on Facebook, and we'll be tagging him both there as well as on Twitter as well. Dr. Wood, congratulations to you again. Thank you so much for your time, Mrs. Wood. Thank you so much for joining us, and looking forward to having you back on the program again.
We are too. Thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely. And let us know when you're up in the LA so we can meet up there too.
I'm looking forward to that. That will be very soon. We'll definitely be getting in contact with you very soon about that. And we thank your audience for tuning in to another great segment of Conversations Live. If you all came in late and you missed part of the conversation with Dr. Wood and Mrs. Wood, don't worry. Thanks to our online friends, you all can catch the replay right after we go off the air. The link is already available through our social media sites. So head over to Facebook.com/Cyrus Webb or go to Twitter.com/Cyrus Webb. If you click on the link there, you can listen to the show completely for for free and share with your friends from there, too. Until next time, I'm your host, Cyrus Webb, saying, as always, enjoy your day, enjoy your life, enjoy your world. Make sure you take out time to enjoy some good music as well as a great book. Thank you all for choosing Conversations Live today. You all make it a great one.